So we're ready to bring the inmate in?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's bring the inmate in. Do you have water? You need water?
That would be terrific.
One second. All right, you ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Are you gonna be showing any photographs today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I don't know if the screen can be adjusted a little bit, angle more towards this wall. This way. There you go. A little more. A little more. You have to be able to get rid of the screen. A little more. Yeah. So you should be just showing the witness. There you go. That's it. Mhm. That's good. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Could you please state your entire name, spell your last name for the court reporter?
Robert Charles Drake, D-R-A-K-E.
Is it Detective Drake?
Yes, it is.
Sir, where are you currently employed?
The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your current assignment?
I'm assigned to a homicide squad in the Violent Crimes Division.
And how long have you been in that division?
18 years.
How many years have you been with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office total?
This is my 23rd year.
Do you have any prior law enforcement experience?
Yes, the city of South Bay and the city of Hallandale.
Fair to say you've been to and passed the academy years ago?
Yes, about 30 plus years ago.
And over the last 30 years, particularly the last 18 years that you've been in your current position, have you received supplemental training and specialized training as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, I have.
So fair to say, since it's been 18 years in your current position, you were in this position back in 2016?
That's correct, sir.
Were you the case agent or the lead agent involving the murder of a woman by the name of Rachel Bay?
I was. I am.
When was Miss Bay located, sir?
March 7th, it was a Monday in 2016.
You know how old Miss
You said
Bay?
2015?
16, sir.
16.
Do you know how old Miss Bay was at the time of her death?
32 years.
Did she have a stable address at the time, or was she transient?
She had a boyfriend in Pinewood and would stay there occasionally, but she was more or less homeless.
After Miss Bay was, and we're going to come back to locating her and your observations of the crime scene, but were you able to locate family, friends, or significant others? I think you mentioned the boyfriend already.
Yes, Jose Gonzalez, that's on again, off again boyfriend, and also Janice Bay, that is Rachel's mother.
Through these family members, particularly the boyfriend, Mr. Gonzalez, were you able to find out whether or not Miss Bay was a prostitute or would engage in prostitution in the Palm Beach County area?
Yes, that also a background check revealed that she had a back page advertisement for prostitution, and also she'd been arrested in the past by the West Palm Beach Police Department.
And were you actually able to locate the back page, I guess you'd say?
Yes, I was.
Through your investigation, when was the last time that Miss Bay was seen alive?
It was after midnight on the date that she was discovered. She was leaving the Pinewood address, Mr. Gonzalez, and last seen walking towards Dixie Highway.
And did Mr. Gonzalez, in speaking with him, did he think she was going out to turn tricks, I guess you'd say, or was she going out to do something else?
He told me that he had given her some money to get some weed, and she should have been back. He expected her back within an hour.
Where was Miss Bay's body located?
About 26 miles away, northwest of Jupiter. That's on the Beeline Highway, which is just about a mile north of the Indian Town Road.
Now, back then, and let me start first with where her boyfriend was living when she left. Is that a pretty developed area where her boyfriend was living?
Yes, it's an old part of the city. Yeah.
And the area where she was found 26 miles away on the Beeline Highway, how would you describe that area
That's-
to your count?
Desolate, wild.
No structures, anything like that out there?
No, there's a train, a rail that goes parallel to the Beeline. And other than crossing structures, there's nothing.
Who actually located Miss Bay out there on Beeline Highway?
They were grading the road, preparing it for paving. And workers found her there as they were preparing to detect underground lines. And there was an FHP trooper that was manning the Indian Town Road intersection, giving them protection for their construction, and he immediately responded there.
And located, found her body there on the site.
That's right.
Now, you said 26 miles. How long driving time would it take to go from where Miss Bay was last seen alive to where she was located out on Beeline Highway?
I've driven it myself. I've been able to get there in 26 minutes, and it's taken as long as an hour, with depending on traffic, your speed, etc.
Fair to say traffic's a lot less in the early morning hours.
You can make it there in well under 30 minutes easily.
Now, in terms of the crime scene where Miss Bay was actually located, what part of this roadway or construction area was she found?
So it was in the brand newly graded northbound lanes or northwestbound lanes. The surface had a road base put down and had been freshly graded the day before. All the other lanes of traffic had been moved to the south side. And so this is really a fallow area that was really virgin to traffic.
Now, well, I'll withdraw the question I was about to ask. I'll ask it when I show you the pictures. You actually went to the crime scene after Miss Bay was located?
I did.
Can you describe any observations you made of her body when you saw her?
Yes, she was nude. Eventually, when she was moved by the medical examiner, I saw obvious severe injuries to her face. It appeared that several teeth had been broken, and based on my training experience, it looked like she had fractures of her facial bones. There were broken fingernails on her hands, and also there were injuries to her arms and on her hands that were consistent with defensive wounds.
Did Miss Bay, you said she was naked, did she have were there any other personal possessions around her at all that you located?
No, it was very sterile.
No identifying information, credit card, wallet, nothing?
No, sir.
How was Miss Bay eventually identified after she was found and moved from the crime scene?
Through tattoos, through our database.
And I imagine once Miss Bay was located, you guys had a pretty significant force out there to do crime scene, to collect evidence, to look at the crime scene, try to locate witnesses, things of
Yes,
that
sir.
nature. Who was your crime scene technician that came out to the crime scene?
Crime scene investigator Early, it was Harold, the family Patrick. I'm sure.
Who?
Early Patrick.
And do you know whether or not Miss Patrick collected any swabs from Miss Bay's person before she was transported to the medical examiner's office?
Yes, she did.
Did that include swabs from the top of her hands?
That did.
There's an exhibit in front of you, composite state exhibit G. You can take a look at it and just flip through those photographs, look up when you're done.
Yes, I recommend it.
What do those photographs depict?
Depicts the roadway, the Beeline Highway with the freshly paved southbound, northbound lanes, and then the new roadbed. It shows drag marks from the roadside to the location where Miss Bay was recovered. It shows only drag marks across the roadbed. It shows the yellow barrier, environmental barrier beyond. And then, of course, Miss Bay in the manner that she was found by the road crew.
Now, do those photographs at least fairly and accurately depict a portion of the photographs that were taken at the crime scene that day?
They do.
Have they been altered or tampered with in any way other than perhaps being enlarged?
No.
Or at this time, I move this item into evidence as the next number states in the positive exhibit.
No, if you have objection, it'll be admitted as evidence.
Six, eight, Judge.
8,
Yes, Judge.
Permission to go through them on the overhead with the detective, Your Honor.
okay.
If I get the right, thank you. I'm not sure why that's so dark, but Detective, what are we looking at here? You can see it.
Sure. So we're actually in the northwestbound lane of the Beeline Highway. And to our right is the freshly graded roadbed. They were expanding it to its present condition, which is 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction. And this is about a mile north of Indiantown Road in Jupiter.
What road?
Indiantown Road, Your Honor, in Jupiter.
What are we looking at here, Detective?
And that's the freshly graded roadbed that I had described before.
And here?
In the distance, you can see the nude body of a woman that we grew to know as Rachel Bay.
What are we looking at in this next photograph?
Well, there are drag marks across the roadbed as I described before.
And are those tire prints there or drag marks?
It's difficult. It was sugar sand.
Okay. Were you able, or did you attempt to get tire impressions?
We did. However, the natural sugar sand for the area is not conducive to molding. Those are much more pronounced. That goes across the normal striations of the roadbed that are going north-south, and that goes directly from the side of the road to Rachel's body.
I think that's just a closer picture of the drag marks.
Yes.
And here,
Again, where the perspective would be at the roadside from the paved section, and that's approximately 25 yards, 20 yards across to where Rachel is.
now beyond that, the yellow barrier there, what's the terrain like beyond that barrier?
So that's all swamp. That's a environmental barrier that they put up during the widening of the road.
And just hypothetically, that body, if Miss Bay had been dragged beyond that barrier, would have been more difficult, less likely that she would have been found?
There's a lot of animal activity over there. You could imagine that short order, probably we wouldn't have found her in that condition.
Here, what are we looking at?
Again, it's perspective from the roadside, maybe a little bit further in. And those are the drag marks that line up right up with Rachel's legs.
And could you tell, having looked at the drag marks and having looked at Miss Bay, were you able to tell whether or not you thought she was dragged by her hands, by her feet?
So the drag marks line right up with her feet. It's reasonable for me to believe that it was by her hands.
And was there any, I'll go to the next photo first. Was there any amount of blood or teeth or anything like that found in the area of her body?
We found no blood or any other reason to believe that this happened there.
So you think she was already dead by the time she was dragged to that location?
That's very reasonable to believe that.
I think we just go through a few more of Miss Bay. What perspective are we looking at here?
Now we're looking from the north, back at Miss Bay. And that's where, I mean, that's consistent with how I viewed her that first day.
And is this looking back towards the portion of the Beeline Highway that was paved but still open?
Yeah, so we're on the north side of that, like the north side of that roadbed. The yellow barrier would be behind us.
What are we looking at here?
That's her hand, her left hand, I believe.
Is this one of the hands that was swabbed by Erling Patrick?
Yes,
I think that's just one last photo. Is this after Miss Bay had been moved and was getting ready to be transported by the medical team?
yeah, significant obvious facial injuries and fractures.
And is this one of the tattoos you indicated she was identified by tattoos? Is this an example of one of the tattoos she had on her person?
Yes, we maintain a tattooed database of anyone that was incarcerated at Palm Beach County Jail.
You should like that. Was an autopsy conducted of Miss Bay?
Yes, sir,
And did you attend that autopsy?
I did.
What was the manner and cause of death that the medical examiner reported from the autopsy?
Dr. Juice determined it was homicide by strangulation.
And do you know whether or not Dr. Juice collected any additional swabs from Miss Bay's person?
Yes, we did a sexual battery kit. Or they did.
Now, Palm Beach County, you guys have the luxury of having your own forensic laboratory, right?
We do.
So you don't use the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
On occasion, we do.
Okay.
But primarily, it's ours.
There was the sexual assault kit and the swabs collected from the autopsy, as well as the swabs done by Erling Patrick from the hands and from the body of Miss Bay. They submitted to your laboratory for testing.
They were.
And did you become aware as a result of that testing of any significant findings?
Yes, in November of that year, Stacy Anderson, she's a senior forensic scientist. She telephoned me and said that there was a match through CODIS of Daytona Beach homicides.
Now, going back even before that, was there foreign male DNA found on any of those swabs that were taken from Miss Bay?
There was.
And which swabs were those, do you know?
The sperm fraction from her sexual battery kit.
And what about from the swab from the top of her left hand?
Correct, yes.
You said you got this CODIS hit
Can
on
I
that.
stop you there, because I'm not sure that I know what the answer is. And I don't know that.
I'll re-ask the question.
Okay, because I'm getting a little confused. This is the hand, or is it the sexual battery kit? Or is he assuming the sexual battery kit includes a hand swab?
I'll re-ask you. I'll
Okay.
clarify. For the sexual battery kit, was there foreign male DNA located on the vaginal swabs from Miss Bay?
There was.
And from the swabs done from Erling Patrick, was there foreign male DNA located on the swabs from the back of Miss Bay's left hand?
There was.
And those were the two places that foreign male DNA was found on Miss Bay.
Correct.
And you said you got that CODIS hit, and you were notified of the CODIS hit in November?
Yes. November 22nd.
Let me ask this, between getting that CODIS hit in November of 2016 and Miss Bay's death, the locating of Miss Bay's body at the beginning of March of 2016, did you have any significant leads in regards to this homicide investigation?
No.
After receiving the CODIS notification from Stacy Anderson, what did you do with that information?
When it was Daytona Beach Police Department, I contacted them, and the following week, I met with Detective Denardi, and we shared information.
Now, from that point going forward, in regards to the investigation into this match between these cases, were you and the Daytona Beach Police Department working pretty much collaborating on this investigation?
Yes, the two of us and also Florida Department of Law Enforcement aided us.
Now, eventually was it decided between y'all and the Daytona Beach Police Department to take a crack at genetic genealogy as a possible investigative tool?
Yes, we utilize a company called Parabon.
And that's a private laboratory?
It is, and they coordinated with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's own lab.
At that point, you had your agency, the Daytona Beach Police Department, a private agency named Parabon, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement all working on this investigation.
Yes, in concert.
And through the capabilities of Parabon and FDLE, were you able to identify potential relatives of the person whose DNA was found in your case and the DNA that was found in the Daytona case involving Laquetta Gunther?
Yes,
After locating potential relatives, were these eventually would you locate a potential relative in Palm Beach County?
yes,
And was an effort made by your agency to surreptitiously collect DNA from potential relatives?
yes,
And was this 3 brothers?
yes.
Do you remember all of the brothers' names?
Yes.
What were they?
John Barfield, Jesse Fleming, and Robert Tyrone Hayes.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't hear the last name of the
Uh,
first person.
Yes,
John?
Jesse Fleming, John Barfield, and Robert Tyrone Hayes.
Was your agency able to successfully surreptitiously collect DNA from all 3 of these people?
They were.
And are you aware of the results of the testing in regard to Mr. Hayes?
Yes,
And for your case, because we've already heard testimony about the Daytona Beach cases, and we're going to hear from analysts later, but what's your understanding of what the results were in regard to Mr. Hayes's sample being compared to the DNA, the foreign male DNA found in your case from the top of the left hand and the vaginal swabs?
in my non-scientific terms, he was the supplier of that DNA.
Is it your understanding that the other 2 brothers were actually excluded from being contributors to DNA?
They were.
Now, once Mr. Hayes was developed as a suspect, did you do a background of him, kind of a timeline
Yes,
for Mr. Hayes? And where was he living and what county was he living in March of 2016 when Miss Bay was murdered?
in Palm Beach County with his mother.
Do you know how far Mr. Hayes' residence was from where Rachel Bay was last seen alive?
Approximately 3.5 miles.
And do you know where Mr. Hayes was working around that time?
Yes, he was working the Ramada Inn is one of the jobs that I learned of.
And how close was that to where Miss Rachel Bay was last seen alive?
Approximately 2 to 3 miles.
All kind of in the same
Yes,
city area? You see, I think it's an old city of Palm Beach.
yes,
I think the timing was unfortunate for you. Were you on vacation when Mr. Hayes was actually identified and the match was made?
I was.
And was he interviewed by your agency?
He was.
Were you on vacation and you weren't able to attend that interview?
I was on vacation.
But you were the case agent throughout this process. It's still true.
Yes.
Just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Just take a break. That's all I have for you this morning. I'll tend to the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Detective Hayes.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Judge, Detective Gray.
That's all right. No worries.
You may proceed. Thank you. You indicated that from your testimony this morning, that Ms. Bay was last seen around midnight. Looking through some of the reports, it appeared that there was some statement that she was last seen about 2 a.m. By her close friend. Is that accurate?
There was some guessing by Mr. Gonzalez of when he last saw her. It was after midnight. It could have been as late as 2 o'clock. His phone calls would be indicative of when he started calling. He started calling about half an hour after she left.
Yes. Now, I was looking at the pictures that were shown here. From the highway, that was a highway that was under construction, the line, but the lane on the south side of the pier was open for traffic from both directions.
Yes, sir.
And where the body was located, isn't it correct that it could easily be seen from that highway?
No, I don't believe so. If you look at that, if you look at the one, if we could refer to the one photograph, that is, you can, if you're looking, we're clearly looking for Rachel, but just driving by that early in the morning, there's a lot of traffic there going to Indiantown. It starts up about 6:30 in the morning, and so there's significant traffic. I'm only aware of the road crew and one other person seeing her there.
And let's go to that. The area where she was located was actually still under construction, so the road crews would be traveling on that portion of the highway.
Yes,
And so she could easily be seen, obviously, from the construction side of the highway.
well, yes, she was discovered by a construction worker using ground penetrating radar looking for lines, and that's when he came upon her.
And it was mentioned also if she had gone over the ridge that was there from the ditch that was dug up and the residual dirt, then she would not have been seen, but that is not where she was located. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's your statement that from your observation that you believe that the homicide was not committed at the location, but possibly somewhere else, and she was taken to that location. Is that correct?
That's reasonable, yes.
You found no evidence of the injuries that she sustained, like missing teeth or anything at the homicide scene where Ms. Bay was.
Correct.
From your experience up to this date, and even after this date, was it 2015 or 2016?
Yes, sir.
What was your experience with other homicides as far as prostitutes being murdered in your county?
Well, certainly there have been prostitutes murdered. I don't have a list for you, however.
Or any other struggle?
I don't know. Sorry.
I appreciate it. You haven't had a chance to look at that. Right? I was looking at some of the DNA reports. I presume that you had an opportunity to review those before you came to the.
I did.
Yes. Stacy Anderson, I believe from your department down there, she does the DNA testing.
Yes,
Isn't it correct that she found multiple donors on the hand DNA?
I couldn't speak to that. I don't have the report in front of me, and it would be best that she would testify to that. I'm not really qualified to.
Yes. Looking at her report, other than the vaginal swab, at the type of the left hand, there were at least 2 male donors, according to her analysis of the DNA.
To the best of my recollection, that sounds reasonable. I can't testify to that. So.
And each of those was a 0.4. In other words, one indicated a 0.4 ultimately to the defendant, and there was another one that was deep, 0.4.
Again, I wouldn't be able to testify, sir. I'm not qualified to do that.
Yes. Were you involved in the investigation portion where detectives or police officers from your department collected the beer bottle and cigarettes that was discarded at the bus stop?
I was not.
Do you know if there was ever a warrant issued to collect any evidence either from the brother or from Mr. Hayes?
Could you be more
Yeah, yes, sir.
specific?
Well, whether ever a warrant issued under your direction to collect evidence either from Mr. Hayes' house where he was located with his girlfriend?
Yes,
There was one?
there was a warrant for his house. I was not here when it was
Yes.
perfected or served.
And was it a general warrant or something specific?
This is confusing. Are you talking, because there's timing issues here, are you talking about before he was arrested? Or are you talking about after he was arrested, just for my own clarity?
Yes, sir. I'm talking about after he was arrested.
Okay,
Yes, subsequent to his arrest, there were warrants obtained to search his home. I was not here. I did not participate in the warrant at all.
Yes, sir. Do you know who authorized those?
Oh, there were several warrants authorized then. Are you talking about judge, state attorney, or detective?
No, actually, when a search warrant's requested, doesn't that generate or come from the detectives?
Yes, in our county, it goes from the detective to the state attorney for to determine accuracy, and then they refer it to the judge.
Yes, sir. Were you ever present at any time when Mr. Hayes was interviewed as far as an investigative interview?
I've never met Mr. Hayes ever.
Thank you, sir.
thank you. All right, anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. For Mr. Say about that. Did you drive up this morning?
Last night, yeah.
How long was the drive?
About 2.5 hours.
Robert, can I ask you Miss Patrick's first name?
Arlene.
Arlene.
EARLINE or E?
I think it's E.
Forgive me for butchering the spelling.
Okay, Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry, Shay.
Your Honor, I just have a request, I don't know if the court would permit us. This information, the public defender's office is substantially more familiar with it. I am familiar with it, but I would request if he could ask these particular questions, if that would be out of
Do you
order.
have any objection?
I have no objection.
Yeah, come on forward. We're gonna need your name on the record.
Yes, absolutely. It's Anthony Ryan, Antony, Anthony Ryan of the Regional Counsel Office, Regional Counsel 4.
Ryan is RYAN.
RYAN, yes, I'm sorry,
Okay,
for Mr. Hayes.
give me 1 second, okay?
Okay, sure.
Now, so I understand it. You represent Mr. Hayes on the Rachel Bay murder.
Correct.
In front of another judge, another circuit, another county.
Correct. Initially, the Office of Public Defender of the 15th Circuit did.
They conflicted out.
They conflicted off. Our office was appointed Office of Criminal Conflict, so we reached.
And just for the sake of putting on suspenders and a belt, Mr. Hayes, you have no problem with Mr. Ryan asking additional questions, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, no, you may proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask some questions just to clarify the record about the genetic genealogy investigation, Detective Drake. So isn't it true that it was actually Detective Denardi's idea to pursue the genetic genealogy?
It was ours and we paid for the Parabon to be used.
PBSO paid for Parabon?
That's correct.
Um,
A subsequent Parabon contract was we split it the second time.
Okay, it wasn't Detective Denardi's idea after watching the news of the arrest of the Golden State Killer in May 2018?
I don't know what the Detective Denardi was thinking.
Okay, well, Parabon is a private lab, right?
That's correct.
That the news about the Golden State Killer talked about this a private genetic genealogy company called GEDmatch,
Yes.
GED, right?
Yes,
Wasn't it the sequence of events that GEDmatch was contacted, but the referral was made to Parabon?
no, I contacted Parabon.
You contacted Parabon.
Yeah.
How did you know to do that, to contact Parabon?
Training and experience, knowing about Parabon, I read.
Okay, so Parabon's a private company that works, for a for-profit company that works with law enforcement on occasion to assist law enforcement to use genetic genealogy to develop leads.
That's not out of the ordinary. Private labs are used.
Pardon me?
Private labs are often used by investigative agencies.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to make that point, that it's a private lab, right? Now, the genetic genealogy, I guess there'll be witnesses from the PBSO crime lab. They don't necessarily go into too much depth, but the genetic genealogy DNA profiles are different from DNA profiles that we're accustomed to in criminal cases, correct?
Again, I can't testify to that. My knowledge of the actual science is rudimentary.
Okay. Do you know enough about the science to know that traditional police crime labs, police cases of DNA identity testing use STR profiles?
So there are various profiles that they use. STR is one, but there are also other profiles I've seen on reports before, not just STR.
Okay, but do you know enough to know that with genetic genealogy, types of profiles used are SNP?
I am not.
Okay, or SNP, have you heard that term?
I have heard SNP, and that's used in the crime lab as well, but Couldn't testify to that.
Okay, well, do you know that the DNA sample that was used to develop the genetic genealogy profile in this case, or the combined cases, was from a Daytona Beach homicide?
Yes,
In fact, it was from Laquetta Gunther's case, correct?
correct.
The male DNA profile from Laquetta Gunther's oral swab was used to generate the type of profile needed for the genetic genealogy.
I don't know that.
Okay, but you do know the origin was Laquetta Gunther's, a profile from the Laquetta Gunther case.
So Rachel Bay's, the profile on Rachel Bay was matched to Miss Gunther. And I do not know exactly what was submitted to Parabon. I know that we were working in concert closely with Daytona Beach. That's all I can testify.
But when you say a match.
Let me stop you there.
Sure.
Just to clarify, you're saying that the source of DNA used for the genetic genealogy was the one that had been redeveloped by FDLE after the initial testing or after the subsequent testing? Because the FDLE analyst yesterday testified that in 2006, they used a 13 loci test, and then she requested, callback
Correct.
from the evidence and used a 21
Right.
loci test. Are you saying which one of I don't even know that he knows.
I don't know Detective Drake knows that answer. I think that could be clarified by other witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out your
Sure.
question.
The main point that I was trying to clarify now with Detective Drake testifying is that it was a sample from Laquetta Gunther that was used to develop
Got it.
the genetic genealogy profile.
Got it.
That's what I understand, but I can't testify.
Okay, and when you say that Rachel Bay matched Laquetta, the sample from Rachel Bay's case matched the sample from Laquetta Gunther's case, you're using the term matched loosely, not scientifically,
Correct.
and really they're consistent with each other.
Again, I won't testify that. I'm
Okay.
qualified.
Okay. Wasn't it Detective Donardi who worked with an analyst at Parabon named C.C. Moore?
CC Moore was one of the analysts that we worked with.
When you say we, it wasn't you, was it Detective Drake?
both
Was it Detective Donardi?
We both had communications with CC and also with the genetic program at FDLE as well.
So and then what happened was because Parabon was somewhat costly because it's a private lab, the genetic genealogy investigation was then, I know for lack of a better word, it was taken over by FDLE that was going online with a new genetic genealogy division within FDLE.
Was it because of expense? Is that what you're saying? Please.
Played a role. The expense played a role, did it not?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, FDLE was developing its own genealogy division, correct?
Correct.
And then it was the case that instead of finalizing what was started with Parabon, it was finalized with FDLE's new genealogy division.
So I can't really testify to the course of events that led to that, but I do know that FDLE did the lion's share of the initial testing from the Daytona cases. So they had a lot of material that they had already been working with.
Okay. And it was Lori Napolitano, who was the analyst at FDLE, who was in charge of the genetic genealogy investigation by FDLE.
Correct.
And wasn't it Lori Napolitano and her analyst at FDLE who found a relative, the person they believed to be a relative of the unknown male profile?
I don't recall if that was generated through CC or through Ms. Napolitano.
Okay. But it was a genetic genealogy lead that led to the individual named Terrace Collins, right? Terrace, Terris Collins,
Yes.
right? And it was Terrace Collins who had 3 half-brothers on her mother's side, correct? And wasn't it a matter of Lori Napolitano informing PBSO that these 3 half-brothers were persons of interest based on the genetic genealogy investigation?
Reasonable. Yes.
Okay. In other words, those names were supplied to either you or the tactical unit who were given the task of collecting what's called surreptitious DNA samples,
Yes.
right? But the names of who to surveil and collect surreptitious samples from, those names of those half brothers, that came from Lori Napolitano, right?
I don't know I don't know if Lori gave us those names or our own analysts determined that the lady that you referred to had 3 half brothers.
Okay.
We had also, as Daytona did, we all have our own analysts, and they're all doing backgrounds continuously on people.
Okay, so we could clarify that with the analysts at
Sure.
PBSO.
Sure.
Just one moment.
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I have no other question.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the state?
Yes, Your Honor, I think just for record purposes, I need to ask a couple follow-up questions. Detective Drake, was Mr. Hayes ultimately arrested for the first-degree murder of Rachel Bay?
He was.
And was he indicted by a grand jury in your circuit for the first-degree murder of Rachel Bay?
He was.
And is that prosecution still pending at this time in Palm Beach County for the murder of Rachel Bay?
It is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, anything else, Mrs. Shea?
No, that's good. Sure.
All right, thank you. Carter, you make that done. Have a safe trip back home.
Thank you.
You want to take a short break or you ready to go on to the next one?
Probably a short break to do, so about a 25-minute interview on the play for the quarter. So
Okay, all right, let's take about a 5-10 minute break. You counsel, you need any water? You okay?
Sure.
Sure.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you got one, here we go. We're good. We'll get you another one.
I